need a motion to dispense with the regular agenda. So, moved by trustee Simpson, second. Second by trustee Peets. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So on to the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing to authorize a tax levy in excess of the tax cap limit established by general and municipal law. Moved by trustee McGowan, second by trustee Peets. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearing is open. Anyone wishing to address the board? You know, when it always says 2%, that's kind of a misnomer. There's a formula that we use, and I think our tax cap this year is 3.25. But the 2% is kind of what the law originally started out as, but seeing nothing, I'll entertain the motion to close the public hearing. No? We're leaving the public hearing open? Oh. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask for someone to make a motion to adopt the local law to give us the right to exceed the tax cap. Then we're going to table it, and we'll keep it open until the very end if you guys decide you need to do that. So I'll entertain a motion, proposed resolution to adopt a local law that allows us to exceed the tax cap. Sounds good. I did, yeah. I did go to close the public hearing.
Sorry, yeah, never mind. You don't need the resolution part, though, you just table it. You need a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right,
my
so
bad.
I need a motion and a second for the resolution, then I'm gonna ask for another to table. So motion was to adopt the local law. Moved by trustee Baraka, second by trustee Peets. I'll entertain a motion to table that. So moved by trustee Simpson, second by trustee McGowan. All those in favor of tabling it? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Good?
Sure.
Smooth, right? We're on to the budget hearing, so let me kind of go over our budget. And you can pop it up there. Kevin, jump in whenever you want. So slide one, as you can see, we had a usable fund balance for 25-26, 4.16 million. It will be down to 3.995 with our fund balance after using a component of an actual fund balance and 350,000 in resource recovery. I used 175 for both fire and police. And I explained to the squad that we would do that from time to time, so it shouldn't be too much of a shock.
Can I just interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think originally, or maybe a few weeks ago, I reached out to Mike just about maybe something similar to that. I think the public needs to know that his staff really helps EMS.
Absolutely.
So a lot of those funds are indirectly made by the fire department.
I agree.
So maybe, so the public understands we're just not borrowing.
And one of the things that I think has also happened along that line is I think I've seen Cody, Mike, was telling me, I think I've seen all three entities
Work together, right? So, yeah, and I misspoke. If the squad's there, usually the fire and PD.
Yeah, so it's,
Without one, you can't have the other.
yeah,
So,
good point, very good point, for sure. So if you go to the next one, the proposed budget overview, it kind of gives you the nuts and bolts of where we are. So our percent change, if you will be 3.15%. We are allowed 3.26% in tax cap, so we are under it by a whopping $7,500. Originally, department head request came in at 3.8 million. We were all able to get it down to 3.3. As you can
when it shows that we're under the cap by just over $7,500,
Yep.
where does that money go? So what happens is, any year that you're under the cap, when we do the tax cap next year, they take into consideration what you were under for the previous year, and allow you to use all or some. You can use all or some of it. So that's one reason why that 2% tax cap is 3.26, is because we had carryover from last year. That's one of the factors that goes into that calculation. So, I've actually got a slide for that.
I think you do, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll see that later. But we'll see, you know where that it goes, it just gets carried forward to the next year so you can utilize it.
Okay.
I have a question on the 2% tax cap. Should I ask it?
Yeah.
What would happen if we were to exceed the tax cap throughout the year? Like say, okay, so we're 7,500 under the tax cap right now. Say something catastrophic happens and we need to go above.
Not because it's only right now, it's for your budget. So
Okay.
when you adopt your budget, that is when you're likely to be either over or under. So that's the only time that they're looking at that and saying, okay, well, here's the budget you can afford. Is it over the tax cap or is it under the tax cap?
So why does it? We don't even know how much we're gonna spend, and so how can we?
I guess the idea of the state is that you set a spending limit and you start to try to stay within the lines of that. If you say, you know what, the hell with it, we're gonna go with 10%, well,
But what if, I mean, there's no repercussions when people go over, right? Like, so what's the incentive to stay under budget?
So we have to be balance. Is that why, so we can keep up on balance for rainy day events?
Well, there's more than one question there.
Okay, I'm just giving you 2 cents.
I think to answer your question, why do it, or is there any ramifications, repercussions? Yes. If you adopt your budget that is over the cap, but you haven't adopted a resolution to override the cap, then there's repercussions. But the way it's been done here is that if you adopted a resolution that has authorized the board to go over the cap, and then if you go over the cap, you're within the rights of what you put forth. You're okay. If you come in under the cap, then that's when that resolution just dies, because you didn't exceed the cap. But that's the only time that they're looking at it, is when you have an adopted budget. They look at, are you over the cap or are you under the cap? And if you're over the cap, do you have permission to do so based on the rules of adopting a resolution that gives the board the authority to exceed the cap? Makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. Ken, what were your comment?
No, I was just saying, if we went up, if we had something where we needed to spend the money, we would just take from our fund balance.
Yes, there's nothing against going forth mid-year, we've done it already, where we appropriate fund balance. To say, here was an unexpected, like when we did it with the refuse trucks, I think it was, where it's nothing you budgeted for, but all of a sudden you're gonna buy a new truck, you can appropriate your fund balance mid-year. But again, that goes through a budget modification that allows that. So that is kind of completely separate from the tax cap discussion.
okay. Next slide, taxable property values. Assessed values of upwards of $348 million. This isn't including Village of Massena, Town of Louisville.
No, I almost put in slides, but I thought it was gonna get too confusing, so I
Yeah.
didn't. But then Monique asked me today, I guess somebody had to ask her. If the budget was adopted with these same numbers, the tax rate for Louisville would drop from $23.12 down to $14 and a penny, or 0.02. So large decrease in the tax rate because your assessed values went up. And for Norfolk, there's only like one property, but it is going from $20.40 up to 21.23. So that's.
But I think you'll find, even though the tax rate for Town of Louisville, Village of Massena went down, the taxes aren't going.
They can, it depends on what your assessment is. If your assessment stayed pretty much within what it was, then yeah, your taxes could see it.
I don't think anybody's did.
Most of them went up, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think So then there's the taxable property values, and you can kind of see on the next slide, Louisville actually did do the reval. Massena has yet to do it. Norfolk, looks like Norfolk hasn't done it in quite some time as well.
And that is reflective of the equalization rate. You can see where, because Louisville just did the the reval, that's why they're back up to 100% assessed values. That equalization rate is kind of a penalty from New York State saying you haven't done it in so long, and we're gonna keep lowering those numbers every year that you don't do it.
And I'm not sure when the town of Massena is planning on doing another reassessment. I haven't heard any discussion. And that's one thing I think, hopefully, the public knows, the village has no control over when reassessments are done, revals are done. That's up to town entities. There's our next slide, the tax cap calculation. You can see the, Kevin, you want to explain the
process.
formula?
Yeah, it really just takes last year's tax that you have, and then applies a tax-based growth factor. That is coming from New York State. They say that it's the 1.0039. Pilots, everybody knows what pilots are, payment in lieu of taxes. People that are companies that like are in the industrial park, they're not set up to be charged taxes as a taxable property. They're on a non-taxable roll, and there's agreements between those businesses and the IDA to have an agreement to have a different payment plan, kind of, for X number of years, for example. So they look at your previous year's pilots, and then you put in your new year pilots as well. There's a growth factor, which that's where the 2% normally has been coming in, if they apply that 2%, which is the 1.02, as the growth factor. The carryover, which was from last year, we had 36,529 to carry over. And there was also an exclusion because the increase in the percentage that we've been seeing for the police and fire retirement system costs, they are allowing us kind of an assistance, monetary assistance for that, to say we're going to exclude 24,044 because you're seeing these large increases in your police and fire costs. So that's where the tax cap is actually at $6,823,650, and it's about 3.26% over what last year's levy was.
Next slide is the tax levy increase history. Each year, you can see what they increased over the next. Tax levy increase was. Been pretty consistent. And you look at 2016 and 2017, you see zero. I understand that's always every government's dream, but you also, you have a chance to do a little bit of work on your fund balance in a situation like that. I understand it both ways, I guess I can say. Tax rate per thousand over the last 12 years. Next slide, you can see that $2.78 per thousand over the last 12 years is what it's gone up from about $14.95 in 2014-15. We're up to $17.74, 26.97. Hold steady. Our unassigned fund balance. You can see it's going to decrease as we use the fund balance. You can see also that did include the $350, the resource recovery revenue. Still a pretty, what percentage are we at right now, Kevin? I know we like to stay around 15 to 17%.
I think it's like 28, 29 right now.
Yeah. Nowhere near the county. But still. Appropriated fund balance, you can see this year, we're using $622,835, and $350 of that is the resource recovery money. So, as much as we did last year, but, I mean, the resource recovery, you can call it which one, it's part of fund balance.
The only place that I categorize that as not being part of the fund balance is in the projection spreadsheets. I have a line that says where it backs it out, to try and segregate that out, say that that was kind of set aside for them. So that's where you're seeing that, but in terms of the financials, it's all just part of the fund balance. The other thing to note is, if we don't have that in here, we might someplace, but, the estimated based on the projections, you can see as of right now, where the budgeted was, use of fund balance was $478,000 for this year. It's trending right now where you're gonna probably end up using roughly $350,000 of the fund balance for this year, which is kind of a previous years, last 3 or so, we would put money into it, but now you're starting to see where you're starting to use it.
General fund or revenues and expenses, and you're starting to see, this is why we're using fund balance. And this is a problem across the state, revenues are down, expenses are up, that's basically for every entity there is. So the question is, how do you increase your revenues? Well,
That's what I was just saying,
you know,
mention.
you increase revenues through increase of taxable properties, and you try to attract businesses and such like that. It's a struggle. There's really not a lot of big properties that businesses can flock to within the village. It all, most of that is within the town, outside of the town. Still, you know, as we do our downtown revitalization, hopefully that draws some more businesses in, and just hopefully one of the ways that we can continue. Because if not, obviously, if you can't raise your revenues, at some point you're gonna have to cut expenses. So it's-
What I was just gonna say.
And the refuse fund, and revenue and expenses. Again, you know, as we continue, and this is one of the reasons why we have to continue to raise our garbage rates, as the county continues to raise the rates. And she's coming on the April meeting, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
She's gonna explain the necessity for the rate increases and, hopefully touch on what she projects for the near future.
So, it's great. And again, I think part of that, right, yeah, driven by bank, I think is a big part of it, you know. The cost of running and operating the landfill, among other things as well. Water fund. We are even in terms of revenue and expenses. Though we were a little bit to the good, but again, we're gonna have to look at our water rates and such. Sewer, same thing, the sewer rates to close the gap. And we went, like, Steve, we had a significant period of time without raising water and sewer rates, right?
Yeah, the sewer rates, they were increased last year.
Yeah, before we did it last year.
Yeah,
There hadn't been one in.
It's been a long time, I've got to jot it down, but it's been 20 years.
Okay. So, again, maybe the value of doing small increments over a long period of time, so. Joint rec. Yeah, that's still between the power authority, the village, you know, we contribute a significant amount, of the town, not quite as much. And it was, the way that they decided originally that they were gonna break it up, it was gonna be 50-50 based on assessments, because that's what it was, but now it's not. We have more assessed property because they've lost other areas, so. Who knows, maybe the town will wanna sit down and redo that.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. But it's, even, oh, and there was a really big concern about, the remediation project. It was in the neighborhood of, what were they originally thinking, 300,000?
Yeah.
And so we were looking at, it's fund, taking a look at budget expenses by code, you take a look at employee and personnel, employee benefits and personnel, that's 71% total. Always remember, we're in the service industry, and that's what we are. That's always gonna be our biggest cost. It is what it is. Contractual, that's electricity, maintenance, operation costs. What we pay per month in electricity, because remember, we pay for the street light bill. It's impressive. 20-something, I think I saw on the weekend. I knew you'd have this for now.
Pardon?
For just the street lighting alone, I think it's about 12,000.
A month. It cost us in 2025, $146,184. The other electric bills in 2025 that we paid cost $168,665.58.
One time, Chad and I were down at night, we ran across this one business entity, and they did solar street lights. And so then I'm like, you know where we live? And he goes, yeah. And I said, is that a concern? And he said, well, it depends. It's just how big of a solar unit you need on top and how they perform. Maybe that's something to take a look at. I'm sure, once again, though, it would be a pretty big capital investment, but if you space it out over a few years, I mean, it's probably what we're paying for electricity. And if they last 10 years, you save yourself some pretty significant money over that time. Might be something to take a look at. As we kind of start thinking of ways to save, that might be something as well. Our equipment was down. Again, I'll commend this board. We've done a really good job of upgrading the equipment. One of the big things I was unhappy with is that run-to-fail attitude that I think was there prior. The lease program, though it's been costly, it's got us back to where our trucks and our fleet are up to date. And I think with Steve, what we're going to start doing is, we'll start sending those back, reducing our fleet, and then having start buying again off the state contract, but on a plan. That's one of the things the enterprise fleet management does. Part of that fee structure, it's your interest rate on the vehicle, and it's also the management fee, where they say, hey, you should sell here, you should sell this. Well, if you have somebody that can do, and they even said, if you have somebody that can commit the time to do that, then that's going to be cheaper for you in the long run. But I think with where we were with our previous vehicles and stuff, I think that was the cheapest way to upgrade, and slowly but surely we'll start seeing the benefit of that. And Steve's already started that process, we reduced that. General fund, budget expenses by state code. Kevin, you want to chit chat about this real quick?
This is just kind of a different categorization of your expenses. Whether it's your general government support or health, which is the squad, or public safety versus transportation. It just kind of shows, again, a pie chart showing here's the groupings of where you're spending most of your budget. 34% of your budget is going to employee benefits. 14% goes to transportation, and public safety, which is the combination of fire and police, is 30% of the budget. So we're the largest of it.
Workers' comp went up slightly. I still disagree with the county in terms of how they look at the workers' comp. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You can't tell me that by us having a police force and the fire department we have paid drivers, that's not a benefit to elsewhere in the county. Don't get me wrong, we have a great relationship with the sheriff's office, and we work on the drug task force and stuff, but they don't patrol our streets because they don't have to. And so my argument has always been, the county should pick up the workman's comp for our police department county's good at getting other people to pay their bills. You know, when I was on the county board, one of the biggest complaints, oh, the state passes the buck on to us, and well, they've got very good at passing it down. Fund balance projections, and so as you look at this, if we continue to really, Kevin, what were you assuming that we would use for out of the fund balance each year here? In order to get us down there, because
That's not looking at what you're appropriating, that is the difference between the expected revenue and the expected expenses.
so, in other words, like when you look at expenses, there's no, you're just assuming what they're gonna be, and we haven't like talked about it. Because we don't know what we would cut, but obviously there would be cuts from that as well. But if we didn't make any cuts and we just stayed like that, you'd be in the negative by 29.30.
Yeah, I tried to go line by line, which is the spreadsheet that I sent everybody. I tried to go line by line and look at every item and say, if this is the expense now, and this is the trend, assuming that that same trend is going to be going into the next 3-4 years, like say for retirement. Don't really know, because they can't tell us 3-4 years from now what the rates are gonna be. But if you assume what it has been going up, if that continues, then that goes into that number. Same thing with wages, based on what the contractual wages have gone up in the last couple of years, apply that same kind of rule. Those are the percentages that I factored into it. That gives you the total expenses and total revenues for each year to show where, based on your current fund balance, that within 4 years it's gone.
And again, that doesn't include any revenues that we get from resource recovery. The refuse fund balance, financial health, you know, we've talked about that. You know, we're gonna continue to work on building that up along with water and sewer. We've already kind of chit-chatted about it. We have some public hearings coming up in April to do those.
These slides were kind of more important than what I thought, because I started with it last year. Was more or less to try and give you an idea of where you're going, but right now, that you're kind of affecting rates and those kind of things. The main purpose was to get into the slides to show what is on order for equipment, to show that some of these things that might take 2-3 years for them to come in, you know that that's gonna take that long before it actually pay for it.
Same with water.
We have some sizable water and sewer upgrades coming as well.
Sewer. And then on the village equipment budget, you can see what we're waiting on for delivery. Any word on any of those, Steve?
So the dump truck plow that was ordered in the 22-23 budget year is expected to be here early summer, June-ish. The one that was ordered 25-26 year, October, November. And our refuse trucks will be here in the late fall this year. And the 2 trucks we just ordered in October will be here about June of 2028. They're on rush. It's a poor market to purchase dump trucks for us.
Do they meet the emissions, the old emissions versus the new emissions?
Yeah, we just narrowly escaped that. That was probably the push order. Because that was an add-on of 20 grand a truck.
That would be incentive to get these going now.
Then on the budget highlights. Let's see, got 2 of them. And as I said, it's below the job of keeping up with our services and improving our services. And like I said, I think there's gonna be some, people I think are gonna be much more happy when we talk about, a new plan in terms of, collection for the,
Clean up.
thank you, cleanup. Bringing in maybe a little bit more bang for the buck. We've done a good job on the equipment. We've reduced our ambulances, we've updated our fleet, we've got trucks on order. We did decrease sales tax. By 23,535.
No one's still has me nervous.
Even with the increase in gas prices and everything, you don't think that's gonna? It's a discussion for the
Yeah.
budget hearings, but just something to kind of keep in the back of your heads for sure.
One thing to add on the resource recovery, I know I mentioned it sort of last month with the work we did with Mike, and Chad and I, with the EMS. I think when we get that administrator in place, I think there's gonna be more, income isn't the right word, but more recovery. Is that the right word?
Yes, there's gonna be more recovery of our expenses, yes,
Yes.
for sure.
It's gonna be hopefully a well-oiled machine.
More efficient, yeah, no doubt about it. I agree. Yeah. And for future consideration, I think I've talked about it also, I'm not gonna keep everybody here, especially myself.
You're tired.
Go on vacation. So, yeah, we have our, public hearings coming up, we've got the schedule, I have it on my phone.
14, 15, 16.
14, 15, 16, one of those days it's in the small room.
At 4 o'clock.
Yep. 4 o'clock. Like I said, I'm not really sure there's much to cut or anything on those lines, but please go through, ask questions to department heads, and, we'll see what we can do. Anyone closing public comment? Yep.
I just wanna thank everybody for working hard.
Yeah, they did.
I know it's a brutal time of year. Well,
It
it starts
was-
when, November, October.
Everyone, the department heads, Monique was really a big help as well with questions and pointing out things, so it's Kevin, obviously, and everybody, Amy, everyone did a really great job. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what day were we meeting in Woodlawn? Which one was it?
15.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait.
Whoop. I need a quick executive session,
Person.
well, for personnel issue.
Person wants to come up. 2 seconds.
Tuesday.
Motion
Motion to go to executive session, trustee Simpson, second. By trustee
Sorry.
Fritz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Going to executive session, not gonna take any action.
No.